So I was just trying to do a little review on this, but it has absolutely started hammering it down. So I've binned that off because it's just not gonna happen today. My ducks are going mental. There's wind, there's rain, my shed's too metallic, so it's loud. So instead of that, we're just gonna have a look around the fish house, because actually quite a bit has changed. It's been a while since I've done one of these. I've been doing loads of reviews, which I love doing, but sometimes it's just a good idea to take a look around your fish house, show people what's going on, and that's what we're going to be doing, having a little chat, having a little casual look at what has been going on. So it's occurred to me that I haven't actually been to a fish shop, one run by a professional company, for a long time. And it's kind of weird because I now have my own fish shop on my property. And I remember when I worked in aquatics retail that one of the things we used to joke about, and I think retailers of all types joke about this, that the job would be perfect if it wasn't for the customers. And I can tell you right now that is true, because my little slice of heaven here is perfect. It wasn't the cleaning of the tanks or the maintenance that was the worst part of the job. It was, in fact, as all retail employees will tell you, it was basically dealing with the general public. And when you have it in your own property, it is actually wonderful. And let's have a look what's been going on. So if you are familiar with my aquarium setup, you will know that this is one system on this side of the shed, and we have another system over here. You might notice though, there has been significant growth amongst all of my tanks. This one is the most significant, I think you'll come to see, because there are some species in here which I thought I had in fact lost, especially this one, which is my branching Gracilaria. I call it that because I don't actually know what it is, and I've just kind of made that name up so that I can give it something. But if you do know what it is, let me know. But yeah, it has absolutely gone crazy in here. And this is partly down to the fact that this system is mature. I know I talk about this every single time, but it's amazing, it's wonderful, and kind of intriguing as well, because this only happens in mature tanks that have settled down. If I stuck all this into a brand new tank, it would just die. It needs all of the maturation of a system to support it. I can't quantify that. It's bacteria, it's microorganisms, it's the little barnacle things growing on the side of the glass, the dove snails, everything all comes together to create a balanced ecosystem. And you'll see in here there's like no hair algae either. There's like none of it. And when I set this tank up a good, well, over a year ago, or at least I set this system up, there's hair algae everywhere. So it does show you really that you just need to relax for the first year of keeping a marine tank. Just kind of let it do its own thing, and then eventually you get to this point where it just sparks into being mature, whatever that means. But you can see you've got codium in here growing, Gracilaria mammillaris on the wall there, more codium, halomedia, which is one that I've always struggled with. This seems to be like a little dwarf variety of halomedia. I've seen other species which have got quite large, I don't even know what they're called, fronds, nodules, you know, the little roundy bits that are all connected together. Whatever they're called, whatever the technical term for them are. I've seen species of this which have really large ones, almost as big as a 5p piece. But this is just a stayed dwarf. I thought it might get a bit bigger as it gets used to the system, but no, it hasn't. It seems to be growing like that. And then we've got the Botricladia. Now this just, I don't even know what to do with it at the moment because there's too much of it. And about 6 months ago I had a couple of little straggly bits which I thought they were going to die and I'm going to lose all of my Botricladia. That's the end of that species for me, but no, you can see it's just a thick, dense jungle in here. We've got Halomenia maculata, which is this one. We've got some Cladophora prolifera, which is this like mossbally one. Obviously Caulerpa prolifera, which I'd only keep in here because it gives you a nice bit of green in front of the red. I think without the Caulerpa prolifera, it will just look very brown and very similar. So that's why I've got the green in there, not for any other reason. And at the back, we've got this one, which is, I call it just red ribbon macroalgae, but I guess it's some kind of gracilaria, we won't know. But not many people have that. I know there's a few people in America that have got this species. They don't know what it is either, so I'm just going to call it red ribbon gracilaria for the moment. And then Cryptonemia crenulata at the back there. Again, that's one that I've struggled to keep in the past. I'll let you know the trick to that a bit later on. Down here, this is my ulva tank. This is how you keep ulva. If you want it to thrive and grow really well, it needs constant movement, I found. If you just let it stagnate and sit on the surface, which you can see like that, like without flow, you can see, look, without flow you get hair algae on it. It starts to just get a bit gunky. So I found that this constant moving bed is just the best way of growing your ulva. Obviously, if you're using that in a sump, try and replicate that, because then you'll get your best nutrient removal from that aquarium. I haven't shown you this guy in a while, and the reason is I'm not massively happy with this Nano tank at the moment, and it's just basically this light. I haven't got round to, or the finances, let's say, to replacing this light with something that's more suitable. It's clearly too bright for this aquarium. Normally the Duncan's is out, but I did annoy it just a minute ago. But yeah, it's clearly too bright for this aquarium, because I did take a big lump of this blue octodes out. You wouldn't believe it's blue octodes, but it is. It was this colour, and I stuck it in another aquarium over here, which is a bit lower light, and this is the piece. Actually, this is exactly the piece, and you can see it's gone back to being blue, or at least the grey kind of colour it should be. And that was, believe it or not, bright white 2 weeks ago. So that just shows you really that it's the lighting in here that's the issue. The water, I water change every 1 to 2 weeks, and I take it out of here. So the water isn't in my opinion the problem, it's the lighting. So this needs changing. I'm not really sure what to get either, because the corals are loving it. So it's one of these things where I need to stick with the reef spectrum light, whereas everything else is kind of plant spectrum, freshwater spectrum. But I need one that fits over a tiny little tank, and also that I don't need to suspend miles above it. So if you've got any suggestions of what light I should put over here, not too bright though, then I would be happy to hear your suggestions. But of course everything's doing alright when it's not immediately directly under the light. We've got the Caulerpa taxifolia is growing quite nicely, Codium's loving life, and again the corals and polyps and things are happy in here. But wherever the light shines, the algae just bleaches. So we need to do a little bit of work with this one. The sump, believe it or not, has this light on it for 24 hours a day, but there is not a single piece of hair algae in here, which I find incredible. In terms of the amount of live rock in here, it's got to be at least 40 kilos, if not a bit more. And I just use that for my biofilter really. You can see there's mollies everywhere, baby mollies, they're just breeding like crazy in here. Dead fly floating around. So yeah, probably should remove it, but it all adds to the nutrient load, doesn't it? I mean, that'll add a little bit of bio to the tank, giving my Caulerpa a bit of food. So I just tend to let them stay in there. You'll notice that there's no skimmer, there's no roller or any of this fancy technology. There's a fox face in there lurking around, you might have seen him earlier. There's also a quite stunning looking regal tang and a little damsel as well for a bit of pest control, let's say. The interesting thing about that damsel is I would have assumed that he would eat these baby mollies, because, you know, that's a mouth-sized snack for a little damsel, isn't it? But no, he does not care less about them. So interesting. By the way, I'm thinking that mollies might be my favourite fish of all time. I know that's a bit of a weird thing to say, but they're just so good. When I worked in a fish shop, mollies were like the bread and butter. People would come in and be like, yeah, 3 mollies please, and they'd spend ages picking one. But that made me resent them. But living with them now, I think mollies are, in fact, almost the perfect aquarium fish. They are interactive. They tend to be bright colours, although this one not so much, this selection not so much. And they're just easy to keep. So yeah, the mollies are amazing. The filter is obviously this has been working perfectly. This is the Blagdon pond filter, forget the name right now, but it's really good. And then over here we have the second half of the system. Bang. Mangroves. Let's talk about mangroves. Wow. So I bought 100 mangroves from a guy I know, and I managed to sell half of them, which is decent, but the other half have started to grow quite ferociously, and the issue now is they're doing too well. I'm keeping them too well. They're too happy, and they're just growing these huge roots. Like there's one over here, like that. That root is massive. And now they're really hard to post because the boxes I've got just don't fit these roots. So I'm thinking about doing an experiment on this actually as well. Let me know if you'd be interested. There's a lot of people saying that if you cut a mangrove's roots off or damage the roots, then the mangrove will die, which strikes me as odd because mangroves are supposed to be quite a tough tree, aren't they? They're one of the biggest forests on the planet, are mangroves, and they deal with a lot of big storms, they deal with all sorts of bad weather, and it strikes me as an odd evolutionary trait that if their roots die or roots get damaged, they die. I would imagine in the wild they might get uprooted and then get bashed against something, their roots break or something. So what I'm going to do in another video is do an experiment where I take this mangrove potentially and cut all of its roots off and then see what happens to it. Let me know if you'd like to see that, because I think that'd be quite interesting. Moving back up to the top, we've got Taxifolia, Caulerpa taxifolia. Mounds and mounds and mounds and mounds of it. It's one that I've struggled with for probably 2 years to grow. 2 years, I reckon. Every time I tried to keep it previously, it just melted away. Dove snail, chilling out. These are breeding really well as well. But I seem to have cracked it now. I seem to have cracked most, I'd say 90% of the macroalgae that I've come into contact with now. I know how to care for, I know how to keep alive. This one is still a struggle for me. The red ogo. This is one that I'm not quite 100% on. It seems to be really finicky, and you can see here it's starting to melt away, whereas everything else is thriving. Everything else is going nuts. This red ogo is not happy, so I want to know why that is, and this is my next challenge basically to grow this. Sorry about the rain, it's really hammering down outside, and this shed is just metal, so it's quite loud. More cryptonemia. Now I said to you before that I struggled with this one, and I did. And the key to it is big water changes. None of this 10% water change malarkey. This guy is talking 50% a week. If you do that, he'll be really happy, and that is how you keep a lot of these macroalgae. In fact, I do big water changes very regularly. Another aspect is lighting. So you can see it's Gracilaria mammillaris when we get some focus here. And you'll notice, I don't know if you will notice, but you should be able to make out that one half here is a lot lighter than this half. That's because the lighting's brighter over here. So the lighting is too bright on one side and dark on the other side, and it's perfect. So if you are getting problems with your algae getting white and fading, just like in the Nano tank, it could just be down to your lighting. It could be too bright. I would always say that dimmer lighting tends to be better than too bright when it comes to macroalgae. And then you've seen this already, the blue octodes, my god. Unfortunately, I can't sell blue octodes at this time of year, it's too cold, it's so sensitive. So this is just going to get full of blue octodes until next summer. And then people can come and buy it off me if they want. And then this is the red filter algae, I suppose. This tends to grow everywhere on filters in most people's tanks. I've managed to work out a way of growing it. You can see here the egg crate where it's not around high flow areas because it tends to like to grow around weirs and downpipes and stuff, but it's quite happy in this this kind of environment as well. Moving on. You might have seen this tank in my last video where I installed this FX2, and I've done a little bit extra. I've added this light to it because these mangroves need a bit more light, I feel. So I've added this. This is on Amazon. It might not even be on Amazon anymore, but similar kind of things are with these 3 lights that come out, and these are Plant Spectrum. Since I've done this, they've all grown leaves, so it's obviously working for them. And then we've got the Fluval Shaker. You probably are familiar with this because it's been featured in my last 2 videos, but since I've added this FX2, which, by the way, is incredible, despite some of the features that people are criticising, it's incredible, right? It's worked an absolute treat in here. These rocks, for the last year, have been covered in filth, they've been covered in hair algae. Obviously there are still hair algae issues, but it is really turning a corner. I'm so happy with it now. I mean, we're still struggling a little bit here, like Audible is covered in hair algae, but it is about 80% clear now. This Kenya tree is splitting around over there. There's a bit amongst the callirpa. There's a bit on here. I can now appreciate when people tell me how invasive Kenyan tree is. I used to go, nah, you should just be happy that it's spreading in your tank. But I can see with the rate at which it's spreading in here, how invasive this could be. And in a mixed reef, my God, it's raining hard. In a mixed reef, this could really take over. And I can see now, that could be an issue. So I have to take a bit of care in here. I might need to remove some at some point. And then finally, the remainder of this system. So this tank is a bit of a weird sump. I'm not really doing anything in here. I'm just chucking spare algae in here. You can see I've chucked a bit of excess Botricladia. Callirpa prolifera is growing really nicely. We've got a bit of Cheeto and that's fallen down. But generally I'm treating it as a sump. There are some really nice fish in here. We've got some lovely butterflies and damsels and tangs and stuff, but he's got his little cancerous lump back, that guy. He got over that for a good 6 months and now it's come back. So I don't know what sure what that is. But he's fine. He's about 5 years old now, that damsel. So whatever it is, he's dealing with it. He's dealing with it okay. And yeah, my pump systems, we're getting our coralline algae growing everywhere. So the maturation of the system is doing really well. And then up here, more taxifolia. Got a lovely dusky wrasse. I'm going to have to stop this video in a minute because it's getting too loud. 2 lovely clowns are starting to breed. Well, they're starting to think about breeding, you know, when they start wiggling and cleaning a corner out, so that'll be nice. Bit of cheetah morpher, little goby, and then my newest addition is Callirpa brachypus. I used to not bother with this because I didn't like how invasive it was, but actually starting to appreciate its pros. Obviously being a fast grower, being quite a dense grower, and also quite short. It's quite nice for nano tanks. So if I hadn't put the taxifolia in the nano tank behind me, I probably would have put some of this because it creates like a nice little grassy mat. So after about 8 years of hating it, I've just suddenly started to appreciate it. So there's a change in my dynamic. So thanks, that's the tour. Hope you enjoyed it. Very casual. While it's raining, you know, let's just chat about what my shed is going through, how it's developing. I will do the review that I mentioned at the start of the video probably next if it does stop raining. So stay tuned for that. Thanks so much for watching. If you've enjoyed it, leave a like and subscribe below. Also leave a comment, let me know what you think. Once again, thanks for watching and happy fish keeping.